Welcome! Hello, if you're new here, my name is Jade and I'm currently studying philosophy at the University of Cambridge. Today, we're going to be answering some of your frequently asked questions and also some things that you guys have sent over from Instagram. Let's get straight into it. My journey to Cambridge. So let's take a step back and look at Year 11 Jade. I took maths, English literature, triple science. It wasn't compulsory. I just chose that as one of my extra subjects. I also did history, Spanish, computer science. I did 10 GCSEs, and in the end, I got 9 9s and 1 8, the 8 being in computer science. From there, I had a feeling that I wanted to do something related to philosophy. It's really interesting because my first exposure to philosophy wasn't really through religious education, but was through a program that I did in year 8 called the Brilliant Program. And the question that we were asked was, is there an external world? Now, that question you don't get asked on a day to day basis. And so when you are asked these questions, you're like, oh my gosh, wait, these are so fun. Well, at least that's what I thought. I thought asking these questions and even engaging in these discussions was so entertaining because even though it's annoying that there's no one answer, the literal skill of you discussing, debating, writing, researching, that's something that I started to enjoy and something I wanted to continue doing. One thing about me is ever since I was a small child, I've always wanted to do well. And so I was someone who was good at academics. I also did a lot of sport. I also liked singing, music, taking up leadership roles and responsibilities. I was a jack of all trades, some will say. And from there, I really wanted to cultivate that interest further. Now, when it came to choosing my A level subjects, this was something that I kind of already knew in year 11. I knew I wanted to keep maths. I was good at maths. I enjoyed maths. So I did maths and further maths. I also chose economics because I was very interested in entering the financial industry. And then I also chose religious studies because we didn't have philosophy as an option at my sixth form. And that was something that I wanted to keep up. Hence why I chose religious studies because that was the only thing that was closest to philosophy at my sixth form. Now, I went to Brampton Manor sixth form, and for those of you who don't know, Brampton Manor is famous for sending people to Oxbridge, Russell Group universities. Even in secondary school, I was speaking to people who wanted to go to Brampton. That was the first time that I heard about the school, and obviously through the media. And so from there, I was like, yes, this is the place for me because I wanted to be surrounded with like minded people, especially since I knew that I wanted to go to a place like Oxford or Cambridge. Going to a place like Brampton at the time, and still now, I appreciate my experience. That helped me a lot with my journey, which we will talk about now. I loved the people at Brampton. The experience I had in sixth form was interesting. It was definitely the sixth form experience, specifically the academic experience, because my school, when you do further maths, you also do all of maths A level in year 12 and you sit the A level at the end of year 12. So that's what I did. We learned all of the maths A level content. By February, we basically finished it. From February to June, we were basically practicing past papers, going over topics. So being able to just learn the content really quickly and then practice for quite a long time before the exam was so useful. In the end, I was fortunate enough to get an A star. And then I went on to do further maths, economics, and religious studies in year 13. In the end, I got A star, A star, AA, my A stars being in maths and religious studies, and then my A's in further maths and economics. During my time at sixth form and thinking about my degree, it all came down to what I was interested in academically, because alongside university, I also applied to degree apprenticeships. Going into year 12, I knew that I wanted to do something related to philosophy, and initially, I was going to apply for maths and philosophy at Oxford. Now, the only reason why I didn't, well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why I didn't was because I realized early on in year 12, let's say January of year 12, that I didn't want to do maths at university level. I think this comes as a result of me not being confident enough that I was going to enjoy maths or be good at it at university. That convinced me that I was only mainly interested in philosophy, and specifically philosophy of science, the intersection of maths and philosophy, hence why I wanted to do maths and philosophy in the first place. because the course of maths and philosophy at Oxford is very separate in the first year. You study maths as if you were doing maths at Oxford, and you also learn and study philosophy as if you were studying philosophy as its own individual subject. It wasn't a case where we would be focusing on the intersection, but rather first look at the subjects separately. And knowing that I didn't want to do maths at university level, that was something that I had to consider. Also, I didn't want to do the MAT. Now, knowing that I wanted to have an intersection with science, philosophy, and analytical aspects of the subject, I looked into Cambridge philosophy, and it literally had everything that I wanted, in the sense that I was able to explore philosophy in a broader sense, but also I would have the facilities and the opportunity to learn a bit more about logic, analytical philosophy, and philosophy of science. And what's so interesting is, even after speaking to second years, third years, a lot of people are quite interested in the philosophy of mathematics, logic, and analytical philosophy. So it's good that I have people around me who have that same interest, so that I can see whether or not I'd actually enjoy it as much as I think I am. So that was why I decided to choose Cambridge over Oxford. Actually applying to Cambridge, something that a lot of people think about is GCSE grades. Now, I know that I'm probably not the best person to say this because I got really good GCSE grades, but even speaking to my friends and speaking to other people who got into Oxbridge, not everyone gets all eights and nines. But I would like to preface and say that it really does depend on your holistic application and also the subject that you're applying for. Because if you're applying for a subject like medicine, where it's extremely competitive, if you don't have the strongest GCSE grades, you need to make sure that you compensate in your personal statement, your admissions test. Your admissions test is so important, especially for subjects like computer science, maths, law. So make sure that if you are doing the LNAT, the MAT, STEP, TMUA, to get a strong result from it, especially if you think that the rest of your application isn't as strong as you would want it to be or as strong as your competition. For philosophy, I wrote my personal statement after I sat my maths A level, so that was in June. So I was working on my personal statement from June of year 12 to September of year 12. But I'm not going to lie, I finished writing my personal statement before summer started. I was happy with the drafts that I had done. My first paragraph was about the philosophy of reality, and then the philosophy of mathematics and language. And then I finished off by talking about the philosophy of time. If you want a separate video about how I went about writing my personal statement, let me know. If you need help with personal statements, CVs, and cover letters, please feel free to check in my description where I offer a one-to-one service to help you guys out. After the personal statement, it was on to the admissions test. So preparing for the admissions test for philosophy, I started quite early on. June, July was when I started looking at papers and actually practicing them. Initially, it wasn't under timed conditions. I wanted to focus more so on my technique and method to approaching the questions. Because with the philosophy admissions test, you basically had section A, which was informal logic, and then section B, which was the essay. So the essay was something that I wasn't so worried about because I was doing RS, we were writing essays anyway. And so I wanted to focus on informal logic because that was the one that I was least confident with. Now, I've had some questions about how to get good at the admissions test. To be fair, I honestly don't know how well I did in the admissions test. I don't have a score for it. They don't tell you. Even when I asked my director of studies, she just said that I did well in the test. So that's what I'm going to say. I did well. But in terms of practicing, I made sure that I understood the question. Please make sure, even if you don't initially get the answer correctly, don't just write down the answer and move on. Actually understand how they arrived at the right answer. Questions that were questions that were a bit more mathematical, I went to my maths teachers or other friends who were quite good at maths or understood logic just a little bit more, and I asked them for help. And I think it's very important to use the people around you to support you because you won't know everything, and that's fine. It really does come down to how you're able to accept the fact that you don't know everything and how you're trying to outsource help and support to give you that information. So that's what I did really well. In terms of preparing for the essay, I didn't write as many essays, to be fair. Instead, I focused on approaching the question from different perspectives. And the way that I did this was with one of my teachers, Dr. Havranek. He was amazing at helping me with my preparation, so thank you so much. We basically, nearly twice a week leading up to the test, would look through past paper questions and we'd verbally discuss what I thought initially, so what I thought intuitively, and how we would go about structuring an answer to the essay. So that's something that was really helpful because it forced me to think about what I immediately thought about the issue. And something that a lot of people kind of have a misconception about is philosophy requires you to know a lot of philosophers, and that for you to do well in the essay you need to quote a lot of philosophers and to know a lot of technical things. That's not true. Something they are looking for in the admissions test is your argument. How well can you formulate an argument and sustain that throughout is a skill that is a lot more important. So the way that I structured my essay was having an introduction, my first line of argument, so an explanation of that in one paragraph. The next paragraph was a weakness. The third paragraph was an objection to the weakness and an overcoming of the weakness. So my third paragraph was an overcoming of the weakness, and then obviously conclusion at the end. Hack: use subheadings every time you have a new paragraph, not an introduction, not a conclusion, but a main body paragraph. Write a subheading. The subheading helps a lot with not only maintaining your focus when answering the question, but it helps the person reading it to understand your argument just that bit better. And I'm very glad that I did that. I didn't know that I had to do that until I spoke to someone who did philosophy at Cambridge. So it really is a case where you use the people around you to help you out on this journey. After the admissions test, which was a pre-interview admissions test, a few weeks after, no, not even that, a few days after was my interview. Now, in preparation for my interview, I basically annotated my personal statement so much. Now, the interview, I prepared quite well for the interview, I'd say, and I started my preparation as soon as I submitted my personal statement. So I submitted my personal statement end of September. What I did, and was something that my friend Aina was doing and suggested, and was really useful, was each sentence in your personal statement, you want it to be on a separate line. Make sure there's space in between each sentence, because what you're going to want to do is print it out. I printed it out landscape and I annotated my personal statement line by line. The way that I would annotate this was think about what each sentence was saying, if I agreed with my viewpoint, what I would change, were there any questions that I could think of that the interviewers could potentially ask me. And it forced me to basically clarify my argument and to make sure that I really understood what I was writing. Because the thing with the interview is you don't know what they're going to ask you. So I didn't know if they were going to speak about my personal statement or my admissions test or random things. So I made sure to prepare for everything. Apart from annotating my personal statement, I spoke with my friends and we helped each other out with our interviews. And we basically just interviewed each other nearly every single day, before school, during lunch, anytime that we were all free. And we would ask questions about our personal statements. We'd also look through past interview questions and practice together. There were times where we also organized online calls to make sure that we got that virtual experience as well, because my interviews were online. And so it's very different when you're interviewing online and interviewing in person. So it's very important that you practice both those skills. I really enjoyed my interview, and I think it's primarily because I prepared so well, in the sense that when they were asking me the questions, some of the questions they were asking were literally questions I have answered before. Also, I was fortunate to be on programs that supported me. So the Pelican program with Corpus Christi College in Cambridge was so useful, and also the Oxbridge Mentoring Scheme, the OMS, was very useful as well with mock interviews. Don't worry if you don't have any programs or you don't know anyone. Something that I also did was I spoke to people on LinkedIn. So I searched up philosophy undergraduates at the University of Cambridge. I asked for their advice. If there were people who were willing to give me mock interviews, we organized mock interviews. Equally, you can ask your subject teachers to see if they could help you out. Don't be picky at this stage with who interviews you, because any experience is going to be so useful. Now let's talk about my experience at Cambridge. A lot of you guys are so concerned. First things first, workload. Comparing my workload to, let's say, my workload at sixth form, where Brampton were quite, I'm not gonna lie, the workload I had in sixth form was a lot. So comparing my workload in sixth form to university, I definitely say that my workload in sixth form was a lot more. Because first year doesn't count, I've allowed myself to also do so many different things. So applying for different opportunities, doing sports. So I've currently taken up athletics, powerlifting, and rowing, for example. It's not a case where the workload is any harder or any easier. It's more challenging because now I have to make sure that I am giving myself the pressure to do well. Because before it was a case where the pressure was to get into Cambridge. Now that I'm in Cambridge, it's kind of thinking about, okay, cool, first year doesn't count. So I need to make sure I have all of these opportunities up my sleeve. It really does depend. Right now, that's how I'm feeling. It definitely might change. In terms of my lectures, I have 12 a week, which relative to other subjects at Cambridge isn't that much. So most of my lectures are in the morning. The most number of lectures I'd have in a day is three. And on Tuesdays, it's three back to back from 10 to 1 p.m. Now, in Cambridge, what's so special is the way that they teach. So, not only do we have lectures, but we also have supervisions. In philosophy, we also have discussion groups and logic groups. So, first, supervisions. Supervisions are one to one meetings with my supervisor. And at the moment, we're focusing on ethics and political philosophy. So, I've been having to do a 2,000 word essay every week. Our supervisions are on Tuesdays. So, I need to make sure I submit it before Tuesday. Now, I like it because it gives me an opportunity to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. So I can't just waffle in my essay, because if I can't validate my waffle, then what's the point? I really like my supervisor, and the supervisions are very useful in understanding how to adjust to university writing. Because even though I did an independent research project and the winter reading challenge and essay competitions in sixth form, this didn't translate into university that much. So at the moment, it's quite experimental. I'm only in my third week here. I'm trying to be intentional with how I write essays so that I can learn from each of them. But they haven't been too bad. They've been quite fun, actually. Lectures, it's come to a point now where you have an understanding of which lectures you can afford to miss and which ones you need to go to. So some of my lecturers will post their handouts online and also record the lectures. If there's a time in the week where I am too tired to go, or I don't wake up on time, or I feel ill, I know that there are resources online. But equally, I know that there are certain lecturers who don't give us anything and I have to be at the lecture. So I've been able to plan my time around that. I'm adjusting well in the sense that I know how to live independently. I need to make sure that I am focusing when I am working and then focusing when I am relaxing. Time to go to church, guys. It's 9:47. We're going to pick this back up after. As you can clearly tell, it is no longer Sunday. It is now Tuesday, 29th of October, and we're going to pick this Q&A back up. Degree apprenticeships. So for those of you who don't know, I applied to both university and degree apprenticeships. You can apply to as many as you want. I only applied to 5. I applied to Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, HSBC, EY, Bank of England. In terms of universities, I applied to Cambridge, LSE, Bristol, York, and Edinburgh. I received all 5 of my university offers, and I only received one degree apprenticeship offer, and that was from Goldman Sachs to work in their operations division. I ended up rejecting Goldman Sachs clearly to go to Cambridge, and I made a more in-depth video on TikTok explaining my thought process behind that, so definitely do check that out if you're interested. Advice on degree apprenticeships and why did I apply to them. So I was interested in working in the finance industry. I'm still interested in the industry now, but I'm being a lot more open-minded now that I'm at uni to what I can go into after uni, which we'll talk about in a bit as well. But I applied to degree apprenticeships because of how appealing it was, and I'd be crazy if I didn't apply to them. So there are 3 main reasons why I applied to degree apprenticeships. One, I was interested in the financial industry, and so I wanted to make sure that I had the option if I thought that the university offers I got weren't the greatest, or if I changed my mind about university altogether, that I had a backup plan. The second reason why I decided to apply to degree apprenticeships was because of how appealing it is. The concept of being able to not only work at a company for the next 3, 4, 5 years, also to get a degree that you don't have to pay for and the company pays for, as well as getting paid yourself as a proper employee. That's something that was really intriguing. I like the prospect of being able to get hands-on experience. Now, me saying all of this makes it sound as if I was pro degree apprenticeship and why did I end up choosing Cambridge? But I think in a nutshell, I wanted to explore. And I understood that with accepting my offer with Goldman Sachs, though it was going to be very beneficial in different ways, I didn't want to restrict myself to the industry just yet. And I wanted to give myself the time to go to university, to be independent, and to also see what other options are out there. So I definitely do think that God has a plan for everyone. And I'm excited to see how he works in me during my time at Cambridge. Guys, I need to be careful because my phone storage is actually on its last legs. Rapid fire. What's the food situation like at uni? If you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram because I post the food that I eat and that I make. And guys, I'm a chef. Let me just say that now. How's the social life? Social life is good. I think because a lot of people from Brampton came to Cambridge, I have been hanging out with a lot of people from Brampton, but I'm also hanging out with a lot of people from St. John's, sports, church. So I'd say I'm meeting a new person every single day, which is always the aim. How do I stay organized? Notion to organize my academic life and budgeting, deadlines, stuff like that. Second thing is calendars, as you already know. Third thing is making physical to do lists. I like using post it notes to do my daily to do lists. Opinions on university love. If you find someone at university and it works out, congratulations. My advice. What motivates me to do well? I think the perfect quote to summarize this is you miss all the shots you don't take. What's the best way to have an academic comeback? Don't underestimate the power of planning. Literally spending an hour planning what you need to do and giving yourself actionable steps that are realistic and you can implement, that is going to be a game changer. Because as soon as you do that, whether that be writing down your goals or giving yourself a to do list, it will give you some sort of direction. Where people go wrong with planning, they either plan too much to the point where it's too restrictive that they can't follow it, or they plan, but they don't do their part in keeping themselves accountable, which is something that I've experienced and still do experience, but I'm trying my best to not let it get that bad. How do I stay organized and not feel burnt out? Something that I'm trying to do now is every single day, I need to make sure I do some sort of physical activity, whether that be cycling or going to the gym. Because if I don't do that and I just get consumed by all my work, I'm going to go insane. I'm going to go insane. I need to make sure that I give myself time to do other things because then it forces me to be as efficient as possible when I do work. Also, understanding my body clock and my energy levels. If I know I'm really tired and I won't be able to finish an essay today, I will accept that. But I'm not going to use fatigue as a constant excuse. I'll try my best to work around it and to listen to my body to make sure that I'm not pushing myself over the edge just yet. Is being deluded useful in getting you far? I think to answer this question properly, the definition of deluded that I found on the internet is believing something that is not true. You might think that you're someone who doesn't like waking up early, right? And you tell yourself, oh, I'm not someone who wakes up early. But as soon as you tell yourself that you are someone who does wake up early and you believe it with a full, complete conviction, you believe that you can do it. I think the only thing is everyone else will think that you're delusional. But so long as you believe that you can do it, then you're no longer delusional. Instead, you're just revealing to yourself that you had the capacity to do all of this in the first place. To directly answer your question, if you adopt this mindset where you push yourself into uncomfortable situations that you're not used to, you are going to grow. And so it's definitely useful in the beginning to tell yourself, oh, I'm not someone who's usually like this, but I'm going to become someone who is like this. That's going to be very useful. But is it going to sustain you? No. That's why you need to start making habits and being intentional with how you do things and what you do, what you say, and how you come across. It's really fun because you have all the control, you have all the power in this sense. Random questions. What's my future career? Honestly, I don't know. It's crazy to say because initially I was interested in finance, but I think now I'm trying to be very open. Consulting, real estate, entrepreneurship. I'm excited to see what the future holds. Who's my favorite philosopher? I'd say coming into university, it was Bertrand Russell because he's a mathematician by trade, but he's also a philosopher, and I really liked his work. My fave song or artist, I listen to jazz and also music made by Christian artists and gospel music as well, and instrumentals. That's the type of vibe that I go for. At the moment, Piero Piccioni if that's the way you pronounce his name. If it's not, I'm so sorry. He's an amazing artist. I'd say, is he jazz? I think so. I think so. My fave hobby at the moment is social media. Guys, I love what I do. Do you ever think about how crazy the butterfly effect is? Looking at my GCSE results video on TikTok till now. You know, I think about this and I am so blessed to have the platform I have, the community that I have, and the people that I've been able to impact, meet, speak to. It's been amazing. Honestly, I'm so excited to see where this goes. And guys, I'm so excited for you guys to come because if there's one thing I really want to show is authenticity. I'm excited to make the content, guys, to bring you along with me during my time at Cambridge. I've grown up watching these study videos and University of Cambridge vlogs. And so I hope that I can be the person for you guys to look up to and to learn from. I know this was a very long video. I hope this Q&A was useful. Thank you for watching and I will see you guys next week for another video.